Hey there, my name is Miranda and welcome to another video. And today is going to be my July reading wrap-up. So for those of you who watched my June reading wrap-up, you saw that I had a rather ambitious TBR for this month. And I no way near completed it, really. In fact, I only did slightly better than last month. I read 5 books and yeah, I'm a little unimpressed with myself. I was hoping to get to more than I did. There are a few books I really wanted to get to that I didn't manage to, and I won't be able to read them now until I return from my visit home because I really can't pack a suitcase full of books to take home with me. I'm trying to make my suitcase as light as possible. Like, it's a challenge already. Adding books is just going to make it even heavier, and I already have a few I need to take home that I'm putting back on my shelves back home because I just don't need them anymore. So yeah, I will tell you the books I did manage to finish. I finished 5 books this month, and I did actually enjoy all of them. And one has definitely become a new favorite book. So first and foremost, I did finish the 2 other books in the Grishaverse series by Leigh Bardugo. So that is Siege and Storm, which is the 2nd book, and Ruin and Rising, which is the 3rd book. I gave these both a 4 to 5 stars. I did really enjoy these books. I thought they were great. I love the character of Alina. I'm not entirely sure how it's pronounced. Either way, I really did enjoy her character. I also enjoyed the Darkling in these books. I thought he was a very interesting villain. He was a complex villain. He was a villain who had what he thought were the right intentions, which they sort of were, but he definitely went about it the wrong way. The only thing I did not like about these books, and it made it hard for me to continue in these books because I hated him, and that was Mal. I didn't like his character. I hated the way he treated his friend Alina, and he's supposed to be her love interest, which was even worse. To be fair, her other love interest was also the Darkling in the 1st book, and that was pretty bad. I wanted her to end up with Nikolai. Like, Nikolai was the most decent man in her life. He was also the most realistic. He said outright that he was convinced his relationships were going to be political. Like, he was realistic. But I enjoyed their interactions, and I'm a little upset she ended up with Mal instead because I hated him. I hated the way he treated her. He was also just kind of that character that constantly felt sorry for himself. And what you learn about him in the 3rd book, it blew my mind, and not exactly in a good way. It was just dumbfounding. I wasn't sure how I felt about it. Either way, I really did enjoy this series. I'm looking forward to reading Six of Crows in the future, and I'm most definitely looking forward to King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo because that is focusing on Nikolai. And Nikolai is probably my favorite character from these 2 books. He's not in it nearly as much in the 3rd book as he is in the 2nd book, but he is amazing. Yeah, these books could have used more Nikolai, just saying. Can't say too much about what these books were about as they are the 2nd and the 3rd and final book in this series, but the original Shadow and Bone book follows a young girl by the name of Alina. She is originally part of the military of her country of Ravka, and then one day she finds out she is a sun summoner. When this is discovered, she is then taken into protective custody by the royal family and the Darkling so that they can hopefully use her powers to destroy this dark, magical fold that separates the eastern half of the country from the western half. And entering this fold essentially is a death sentence because you are torn apart by horrible creatures. So the book follows Alina as she's learning how to use her powers and finds out more about people's plans for her and these powers of hers. So yeah, no, I definitely did really enjoy this series. I would highly recommend it if you want a good YA fantasy. I would also recommend it if you want a book with a villain that you know that he definitely has his heart kind of in the right place, but he is most definitely not going about it the right way. Also, highly recommend if you want a pirate prince. Just saying. So the next book I read was Vicious by V.E. Schwab, and I am so excited that I picked up this book, and I am so excited for September to come. I loved this book. This was amazing. It was glorious. I remember reading it, and as I was getting closer and closer to the end, I kept telling my housemate, you have to read this book, you have to read this book, you have to read this book. This is most definitely my favorite read of the month. It was amazing, it was glorious, it was complex. The characters, besides one, were all characters who were definitely in a morally gray area. They were neither bad, they were neither good. There was always something about them where they either believed they were doing the right thing, or they were doing something that they viewed as wrong, but honestly, as you read the book, you're like, yeah, no, that's probably the right thing to do given the circumstances. So this book follows 2 characters mainly, kind of follows a 3rd as well that you meet very early on, but this main focus of this book are these 2 college roommates who were friends. Their names are Victor and Eli. They were college roommates, and they both decided to work together on a project of Eli's where they looked into extraordinary individuals and their powers and how they managed to gain these powers. Needless to say, when they got to the more practical practice section of their research and their ideas, things went very bad, someone died, and Victor went to jail. The first half of this book is both what happens in their time in college with this research, and it's also 10 years in the future when Victor has escaped from prison. And he is hunting down Eli for vengeance. The second half of this book focuses entirely on the present and their little cat and mouse game. This book doesn't take place over a very long period of time, but it has so many flashbacks that I loved how the story was interwoven. I love that it went between the past and the present, so you got a very slow idea of how everything happened. You were very steadily introduced to these characters, their relationship with each other, what they meant to each other back then, what they now mean to each other back now, and exactly why they hate each other so much. But yeah, no, I think this book can be very nicely summed up by this tiny little summary on the back that is with the blocked out letters and the few letters that remain. And it says, "Damaged humans play with powers." And I think that sums this book up really well. So yeah, this was a 5 out of 5 star read. Loved it, excited for the sequel. Highly recommend for anyone who wants a book filled with morally gray characters, people with superpowers who don't necessarily do the right thing, and for anyone who is a fan of V.E. Schwab. I am so excited for Vengeful in September. I am so excited to see where everyone's stories go after the ending of this book. The next book I read this month was Heart of Thorns by Brie Barton, and this was actually the book in the July Fairy Loot box. I pretty much picked this book up immediately after I opened the box because I needed to see what this book was about. I had read very mixed reviews about it, which had made me originally hesitant to purchase the box because I was so convinced this was the book in it. I did, however, end up purchasing it because I thought the theme was amazing, and if it was this book, I wanted to give it a chance. This book follows Maya Rose. She is a young girl who has been trained her whole life to be able to hunt down and exterminate these women known as Greenwich. They're women who have the power to control people through their blood, their flesh, their bone, essentially almost always killing them according to what Maya has been taught her whole life. In particular, she wants to hunt down a particular Greenwich who killed her mother. Her life, however, changes one day when her father instead promises her hand in marriage to the crown prince. On the day of her wedding, however, she is attacked and finds out she has the powers of a Greenwich. This book then follows her as she goes on a journey to discover both who she is, what her powers are, the history behind her powers, and more about her mother and her mother's death and who her killer was. Okay, I only gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy it a bit, particularly the ending. I thought the ending was definitely worth the read of this book, but I have very mixed feelings about it. I did enjoy it. It had amazing potential. I love the potential in this book. The world building is amazing. The Greenwich are one of the most interesting, characterization creatures I have read. And this is definitely a very feminist book, which is something I have very mixed feelings about because in some respects it feels like it's demonizing straight men. Yeah, no, the only good male characters in this book are either gay or bi, and that's something that I wasn't entirely sure how I felt about. At least that's how I read it. If anyone actually read this book and found a character who was a straight male that was a good character, let me know, because I honestly don't remember finding one in this book at all. The other thing about this book is there was some dialogue in it that was really odd. I remember reading them in a couple of reviews, and when I actually came across them in their context, they were even, just stranger. An example is definitely Maya when she's talking to the Crown Prince Corin, and she makes a comment about having not been married, and she says that she has neither had a husband or a wife. Yeah, no, the or a wife is a little oddly tacked on at the end. It's definitely almost like an afterthought. There's also another section when Corin compliments her beauty and then tries to backtrack, saying that her beauty in no way marks her value as a woman. There was also a couple, and this is a trigger warning for people, there was a couple attempted rape scenes in here, and they were just, again, kind of overdone. They felt extremely unnecessary in my opinion. So I do have mixed feelings on this book. It wasn't a favorite of mine. It wasn't something I horribly disliked, but I did enjoy it enough, and I believe in the potential of this book so much that I am looking forward to the sequel, and I'm looking forward and hoping that the author builds upon the potential she has made in this book and the world she has created. Next up, and this is the final book I read this month, and I feel so bad about this. I did enjoy this book. I will definitely say I did enjoy this book. I am excited to read the next book in this series, but it took me a very long time to get through it. And that is Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir. So if anyone actually looks on my Goodreads, they would notice that I technically started this book at the beginning of like June. Yes, I technically started this at the beginning of June. I think I only read like a little bit of the first chapter and then I stopped for a while because I needed to read a bunch of library books that came in and I was in a big reading slump after reading one. But I did finish it this month and okay, I'm trying to think of how to word this. I did not dislike this book. I did not dislike it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I really did like it. The thing is, it took me a very long time to get through this book because of 2 things. One, I hated the character of Keenan. I hated him with a passion. I kept rooting for him to die throughout this entire book. Like, I was hoping for his death so much that each chapter when he was still alive, I felt like it was failing me. Eventually, though, my hatred of him was justified, so I'm happy again. The book got so much better when that happened. The other thing, and this is more of a me problem than a book problem, but it is very heavily inspired by Roman society and religion, and I think even a couple characters. Particularly the character of the emperor in this book, he has definitely made me think of a lot of different Roman emperors. Why is the fact that this is very Roman inspired a problem, you say? Well then, I've mentioned in a couple videos that I am studying overseas. I am studying for a master's in ancient history. And what is my main focus in ancient history, you might ask? Roman. No joke, my main focus is Roman. Roman history, Roman literature, Roman religion, Roman politics, Roman international politics, Roman economics, all of that. That is my focus. That is what I do. I even did a volunteer project in Pompeii. That is how much Roman I do. My entire dissertation is essentially a focus on a particular Roman religion and the beginnings of Christianity in the Roman Empire. So because of how Roman this was, I had problems getting through it because all I could think was everything I had to read for my dissertation for all the Roman classes I've ever taken. So because of that, it took me a very long time to get through this book because of how heavily Roman inspired it was. That doesn't mean to say it diminished my enjoyment of this book. It just meant I had moments where I needed to step away for quite a while because of how heavily Roman inspired it was. I just needed moments when I was reading something that didn't have me thinking I was reading a very odd version of my textbook now and again. The names in particular bother me to no end because I've studied Latin and I'm reading a bunch of like Latin names, and every single time I read them I go, God damn it. I thought I didn't have to continue reading Latin for a little while yet, and I'm doing it right here. So I still did really enjoy this book. The ending was phenomenal. Oh my god, the last 100 pages or so I just wanted to zoom through because I was enjoying it so much. It was, oh my god. The decisions the characters made, the revelations that were made, everything that was going on, I loved it. One of the things I appreciate the most about this book is the time difference that's going on, like the time it takes for them to travel. The author definitely put some research into it, and I appreciate that so much. Yeah, definitely better than Heart of Thorns, because that book, I'm pretty sure, took place over the course of 1 week. And I was convinced at one point that it was taking place over the course of at least a month. So, as I said, I did enjoy Torch Against the Night. Like I said, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I am still excited to read Reaper at the Gates. I know it's going to be phenomenal considering what happened at the end of this book. It is only the fact that it is heavily Roman inspired that makes me read it a little bit slower. It has nothing to do with my enjoyment of the book. Sometimes I just need a break from all the Roman stuff. I already have to read a lot of it for my classes, and I have to read even more for my upcoming dissertation. That already makes me wonder how my read of Reaper at the Gate is going to go, considering I'm reading it for both the Booktubeathon readathon as well as the Magical Readathon Newts exams. Either way, I know I will finish it before the end of August. I would like to finish it before the end of the Booktubeathon readathon. And I do know that despite how heavily Roman inspired it is, I am going to enjoy the book. I will probably just need to read a little bit of other things in between my reads of it. This is what happens when you study something for far too many years. Anything that is inspired by it, you suddenly need to take breaks a lot. Kind of the reason why I'm a little hesitant to pick up almost any historical fiction book that's set in the Roman Empire. I know I'm probably going to either find problems with it or I'm going to have moments of this is just too Roman. I don't feel like reading a fiction version of a textbook. So there you have it. That is my wrap up for July. I think 5 books is still pretty good for me considering I did work quite a bit this month. I did have a couple things going on. I did enjoy all of the books I read. The lowest rated was a 3-star, and I believe in the potential so much for this book that I am still excited for the sequel. All of the books I talked about, I will leave a link to their Goodreads pages down below if you want to check them out. And honestly, for all of these books, I would highly recommend them. Particularly Vicious. I think everyone should give Vicious a chance. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos by me, both bookish and travel related, please be sure to click that subscribe button down below. And I'll see you next time. Bye!